Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars, but I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision, always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, wow, what an intro.
That was not even the intro, Andrew.
Whatever that was, I'm
because
really pumped up because of it.
good. That's the best way to be. I just want to start with this one though. The other day I was in Morrison. So Morrison supermarket is just around the corner from me, and I saw mince pies in October. So Halloween hasn't even happened yet, but there they were, shiny, ready, confident. And it made me think that supermarkets don't wait for the seasons, right? They create it.
That's
So
true.
yeah, and the whole point of why we're doing what we're doing is to learn, right? We want to learn how, like supermarkets, they build rhythm, they build anticipation and consistency long before December hits. And that, my friends, is architecture, right? Andrew, you're here to tell us a little bit about architecture, right? It's not just tech or processes, but designing systems that make momentum predictable.
Yeah.
So I just want to welcome everybody to my kitchen. This is In My Kitchen with Yvonne, where every Thursday we gather, we pour a cuppa, and we talk about what it really takes to build things that last. Businesses, communities, and ourselves. We want you involved. Jump in with questions, especially in today's Lunch and Learn, because I'm telling you, we are here to talk about tech with heart. So how to use systems and structure to create freedom, and not freedom just on its own, but without friction. That kind of buzzword, you know what it means, Andrew, don't you?
I like that tagline, freedom without friction. That's the headline itself.
Correct. And that's why I couldn't think of anyone better than you, my friend, Andrew. Dru, as we call you, right? You're here because you read like a perfect blend of precision and purpose, and even just how you've shown up today. Yeah, you studied computer science at Warwick and then Oxford. Then you went on to design and deliver systems for JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Barclays. And then you've just founded a creative agency in London and a software development house in Kenya. And you have global clients and a distributed team. So tell us a little bit about Dru. Welcome to my kitchen. We have so much. 30 minutes is not enough. I wish we had 3 days, but we're going to try and make it work, right?
Wow. Like,
who's Dru?
first of all, before I introduce myself, that intro is just, every time I talk to you, there's this energy that you have that's very infectious. Like it's like, I feel like I'm reborn again. Like you should become a pastor. You should think of getting into you've got this motivational way of infusing energy. So thanks for that intro. No, and you're right. First of all, your intro about the supermarkets and that's a very, very key insight. Them creating the seasons. And again, I like that insight that you're bringing. That's a lot of people or a lot of successful organizations create the seasons. They don't wait for the seasons. They're almost like, well, at least they prepare for them. Let's put it that way. Even if they don't create them, they're definitely prepared way before even they get there. So I think that's a very, very good insight. In terms of who I am, Andrew Mugoya, born and raised in Kenya, studied under education system that's famously known as 844. That Kenyans would know what we're talking about, but in the rest of the world, just know it's a very hard, very academic-driven system of education. It's kind of like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. So somehow,
most people don't.
Most people
you have
don't
to
like
cram.
Somehow we figured our way through that. So then came to the UK for university, like you said, studied at uni, computer science, finished, worked in the city for about 8 or 9 years, started a creative agency in the early days of mobile and mobile apps, did a lot of good projects there with UK and international clients, moved back to Kenya, to run a software house. Very, very tough MBA. I can say that, trying to run a business in Kenya if you've never worked there and been there. But I went back very arrogant, thinking I know everything. I've been to all these big schools. I've worked with those big multinationals, and Kenya humbled me back to the
School
ground,
of hard knocks.
and just reminded me that I'm not all I think I am, which was good. It was a very good MBA, very humbling. But in that process, I think I discovered my purpose. I think that's kind of like the compromise you get. It destroyed my pride, but it helped me find my purpose in there, right? And I kind of like, it also shaped my view post that period. I came back to the UK, joined a fintech when they were still an early stage startup, helped them grow into this global scale up. And again, went all over the world with them, did some amazing stuff, and then decided to jump back into entrepreneurship with Strawpath. But I'm sure we'll talk about that pride and purpose bit in more detail. But that's kind of like my journey in a nutshell. So now my Strawpath essentially does technology strategy and architecture for financial institutions and fintechs. I also work with startups, not necessarily in that line, but mostly it's financial institutions and fintechs. And I also act as an advisor to a few startups here and there, talk to a lot of founders. And yeah, just enjoy that process. And that's who I am in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. I think everybody now feels they really understand, you from just what you've explained, your whole, I think what shapes your work. The reason why when we look at your website, we look at your work, we look at what you've done with Leap, we see precision, and we see that quality work because you've got such a good way of just understanding yourself. I love that. We have to definitely come back to this pride and found your purpose, because there's just so much to unbuild there. There's 5 things that I really love about your philosophies, which you call your 5 big S's that shape your work. I don't even know how you manage to build what you're building and teach. As you forgot to even say, on top of that, you even have the most biggest job in the world, which is you're a dad as well. We all know parenting is hard. But then you've got these 5 S's that shape your work. And you say, well, you've got to be able to solve a real problem. It has to be safe and secure, sustainable, scalable, and sellable.
Yeah.
So I love how beautiful it is that you're translating far beyond code in how we should all build businesses, right? So let's jump straight away then into the first segment, right? Our first lesson, if you like, or challenge, because Dru is taking us back to the 844 system. I'm joking. No, he's not. So the challenge is, you're going to be helping us, is that true, to draw our business on one page, and you'll teach us how to do it in 8 minutes? Is that possible?
Well, okay. So what I'll do is I'll help you think about it, not necessarily. And we can throw in a few challenges and exercises, but it's more of thinking about it. So I guess we can start off by thinking, what is architecture, right? Maybe and as we think about it, or as I try and describe it, then we can try and individually put it in our own context and think about, okay, what would that mean if I apply this architecture thinking to my business, to my side hustle, to my whatever that might be, product, whatever it is. So the first thing to start off with is, we all know what an architect is, right? A proper architect. I'll say that there are proper architects, and then there's the rest of us who pretend to be architects. So the proper architects are the ones we all know who design buildings, very talented. We see their work in the buildings in the city, international, buildings and all that stuff. So we all know what an architect is. So
not firefighters, eh?
Not firefighters. So they build the building, right? So in terms of technology, we borrowed the term architecture because we kind of like do the same things, not for buildings, but for systems and for processes, right? And specifically technology systems and processes. Yeah. So really, it's very similar to what you said about the supermarket. With architecture, what you're trying to go is take a step back from everything, have a big picture as to how do you want to organize the same way an architect of a building does. How do you want to organize the things, in this case, in technology systems or products? How should they be laid out, arranged? If it's let's use the building as an analogy. Which room goes where does the toilet go? Where does the kitchen go? The same way they organize that, you want to do the same thing for your technology systems, And at the same time, you also want to organize your processes. All right. So in terms of technology architecture, we tend to help organize those two things, the things and the processes or the actions. Yeah. So once you've organized the process, the things or the systems, how are they being used? Who's doing what? Which user does what? Yeah. So that's really all architecture is. I said we borrowed that term from real architecture to help people understand what we do with systems and processes. And the reason why that's different from a developer, if I can say that, is a developer is like your electrician, right? Your developer jumps in, the same way an architect first does the building, then the electrician comes in. A developer is your electrician. He comes in and then starts doing the wiring, right? Of course, he'll design what the wiring look like, but he's very focused on a specific thing, right? Your gardener will then come and do the gardening. Whereas your architect kind of like has to understand that full breadth of the different specialisms, right? So a technology architect, the reason why you take a step back is because you need to be you're not multi-talented, but you have an appreciation for all the different people that come in. You've got an appreciation for the developer, for the salesperson, for the CEO, for the CTO. You have an appreciation about all these guys do, so that when you're designing the systems, you know how all those things will work together. You're not very efficient if you design a technology system for just one set of users, maybe say the developer or the support team. So as you think about your business, I think it's the same thing to think how you organizing the things that go into your business and the processes that go into your business, right? Then now you're more intentional about how your business runs, right? Now, why I like the phrase you use about not firefighting is because a firefighter is reactive. The firefighter waits to be told there's a fire, come and put it out. An architect is proactive, right? An architect says, I'm shaping how this is going to play out. And I'm also factoring in contingency. When there's a fire, how do we make sure that there's a fire hydrant, next door to make sure that we put. So an architect is proactive, whereas a firefighter is reactive. Yeah. And I guess we all want that in our businesses. If you really want to build up your business to be sustainable and process driven, you want to be proactive rather than reactive. The moment you're reactive, it's very hard to have a scalable business. It's very even hard to sit down and say you've got this passive income, because it requires you to be reactive every now and then. Things are falling apart. So I guess that's the challenge I'd throw to the listeners, that how do you now start to be intentional about making your business run the way you want it to run? And I guess we're all aiming for the same thing, which is one day it should be self-sustaining, it should be scalable, meaning you can grow beyond just what one person can do. I'm sure we all want to increase our revenues. But you have to be intentional about that. You have to kind of like think, okay. And again, you can decide how much detail you want to get into. Some people go into a lot of detail. Some people go, okay, I'll plan one thing at a time. Some people take it gradually and phase it. So that's the challenge I'd throw as we go through this conversation, to start thinking in those lines.
Oh, I like that. I really like the one where you say firefighters are reactive, and then an architect is proactive. So if we're going to step right out and we're looking at business, one of the things we were talking about was this idea of being able to have a clear path of the whole system. So if our viewers want to follow us with a kind of a paper and pen, you can grab a piece of paper and then grab your pen and write these 6 boxes: attract, convert, deliver, retain, finance, and improve. Right? So attract, convert, deliver, retain, finance, and improve, and then you put an arrow joining all these 6 boxes, and that essentially is what you're wanting to do in if, for example, it's sales, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? You want to attract your of course you have to start with the planning and know who your customers are and all that. That's kind of like where you sit down with your marketing and everything. But now you're architecturing your sales, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you know that one thing I'll have to do is I'll have to map how I will attract them, then how I convert them, how I deliver, how I then retain them, and then how we make sure that the finance is there to consistently build, and then we improve on that.
Correct.
So
Yeah, yeah.
you have those arrows joining them, and where those arrows are not joining, that's where you know you've got a problem in your systems, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
am I to understand that's what you call an energy leak?
Um,
Yeah.
sorry, say that again. Energy
You
leak.
know, like, yeah, energy leak, like the energy is leaking because that arrow
Oh,
is not,
yes, yes,
um,
yes, yes. No, yeah, you're right.
is not,
You're right.
yeah. So that's kind of like an invisible gap. How would you help leaders or side hustlers or,
Mm.
whoever is running a business identify those invisible gaps with architecture?
Well, that's a very good point, actually. I think okay. It's and you're right. There's different perspectives you can bring to how you try and diagnose problems. I think for most of us who are in entrepreneurship or run our own agencies or companies, whatever it is, the biggest the big KPI is always revenue, right? I mean, not even revenue, it's
Mm.
profit. Let's just be clear, it's profit because you can have revenue with no profit.
With no problem.
So
Yeah, it's true. And a lot of people don't know the difference, right?
exactly, yeah. So ultimately for me that's where it starts. If you're not getting the profit you expect, that's where so it's almost like when you talk about an energy leak, the biggest symptom that actually let's even do something similar. Let's think of a pipe, right? A water pipe. The first thing that tells you that the water is there's a problem with the water pipe, meaning there's a leak, is at the end if you're not getting the water you expect, right? If you open the tap to the maximum and then at the end you're not getting any water, you go, okay, there's something here between the beginning and the end that's leaking, right? And it's the same thing with your processes. If at the beginning you're putting all this energy, right, meaning you're spending the time, you're calling, like you're doing all the work, and then at the end you're looking and saying, but my revenue and profits are not. So you go, the work I'm putting in, the energy I'm putting in is not coming out on the other end. So somewhere in
Yeah.
between there's something that's leaking. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's for me is the starting point. Like you go, if I'm doing the work and I'm not getting the result, somewhere in there's something leaking. Now, okay, then you go, okay, what's this thing that's leaking? Then you now start looking at the output from each stage. You go, stage one, I expect the output to be this. And if it's not, in between there's a leak. So, how the same way you do the pipe, like you just go in and go, that's how I'll identify where the leak is. And you just keep going. And if the first stage you go, no, the output is what I expect. My energy I'm putting in, this is what I'm expecting to come out of it. So, for example, if you talk about sales, you say, I mean, typically a sales conversion of about 5 to 10% is good, right? If you call 100 people and you get 10 responses, that's a good response. Usually it's way less than that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's like a super salesperson, right?
exactly. So if you sit down and say, okay, fine, I need to get 10 people to respond, I need to at least send out 100 calls, okay? So you do your 100 calls, one person responds. You go, okay, there's a leak there. I'm expecting 10 because 10% is good. Like it's like job hunting. You to get 10 responses, you literally have to send your CV out 100 times, right? I tell that to a lot of graduates and they think that's too many. I'm like, no, we all did that. You have to send it out 100 times to get 10 responses, right? And even then you're lucky, right? So anyway, so assuming you don't get the 10 responses from your 100 sales calls, then you go, okay, clearly there's a leak there. Either I'm not calling the right people or I'm targeting the wrong. You have to bring that within industry standards to go, okay, 10% is understood. Because even if you target the right people, right? If you think about us as consumers, even if someone sells you something you actually want, it's only 10% of the time that you respond to that, right? If you try and send me a Mac computer, I love Mac computers, but I'm not buying them every time. So you can actually be right. I'm your target customer.
Yeah.
You've written, but it's only 10% of my time that I'll actually be in the market for it. So it's not that you've not targeted the right person. It's just called me at the wrong time. So 10% is what I'm saying is still a good result. It's not that you've made any mistake. You still have to carry on that way. Then assuming you get your 10%, then you go, okay, then after that, I need them to now, those 10 people who responded, I need a conversion rate of 10% again, right? So out of 10% of people who've responded, only one will
One
respond.
person becomes a client. Yeah.
So you keep going with that journey until you go, And that's when you're identifying your leaks. And the same thing with energy, like with water, with the water pipe, there's always an acceptable amount of leakage. Like you never got 100% water in, water out. Like, and that most pipe designers know that if you have a hose pipe, you're going to lose some water at the top. It's just like, you just go like, that's what I'm expecting, right? So as long as your leakage is within acceptable ranges, then you can go, okay, that's energy is never 100% efficient. But the point I'm making, I guess, is that diagnosis process is just what you follow. I really like the cycle you described there, the stages. I'd not come across it before, but I like how you described it. But I think it's a nice way of diagnosing those stages and going, if at every stage at the end I'm not getting the results I expect, then I need to try and figure out what the problem is there. Do I need to change my target? Am I targeting the wrong people, the wrong channels? And that's how an actor would think. Again, you design systems, you test them. Sometimes they work as you expect, sometimes they don't, and you correct as you go. So that's how I'd approach that.
So always having that kind of big picture thinking and finding a way to map it. And it's almost like this forces you to almost consistently be able to identify what you're doing, right? Not like, nobody picks up the phone, or no, it's like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and this is happening. So the thing that I'm doing, right, the input I'm putting in and the output I'm getting out, where is there an energy gap? Where is there an energy leak?
Correct.
And then go back and say, okay, maybe we need to start thinking about maybe the target customer. The example you've given is perfect, right? You love MacBooks, you love Apple products, but you're not going to buy them all the time, well, unless it's built in with. Make sure that it breaks everything. Then you have to buy. And that's another conversation for another day. Yeah, but that's really good. I love that. Okay, let's move to our second
on that
segment.
point. Before we move on for that point, but let's going back to the MacBook example. The other thing that we forget as entrepreneurs is that with sales, there's also marketing, right? So for me to buy a Mac when I need it, they have had to keep reminding me, even when I don't need it, then I need it. That one day I need it, right? So that sales effort they're putting in, or you can call it marketing, is not wasted, because they're keeping themselves top of mind. Like I recently had someone talk about Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is the best example of that. Once you get to a certain age, you don't drink Coke as often as you did, right? But what they're very good at doing is they're always advertising, because they're going, the 10% of the time or 1% you buy, we want you to remember that we're the ones to. So again, same thing for us to remember as entrepreneurs, that if that 10% is not wasted, the 100 people